members are sitting in the witness stand just for purposes of opening and closing statements.
That's fine.
May I proceed?
You may.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. The defendant is here today because she aided Cameron Poole in a plan to steal money from Rock World, and because on August 30th, 2012, she aided Cameron Poole in the commission of a robbery by being at the controls of a ride that he used to make his escape. Whit Bowman, the defendant, had her fate in her own hands. On August 30th, 2012, Officer Winston Thomas, Winnie, was standing outside the ticket booth at Rock World. He was a security guard there. All of a sudden, he hears a scream, and he sees a young man come sprinting out of the ticket booth, a knife in one hand and a bag in the other, running through the park. Winnie hauls himself to his feet, and he chases after the young man. Breathing heavily, they get to a ride at the back of the park, the Tunnel of Terror. This is an enclosed ride, and when they get inside, the lights are dim. All of a sudden, the lights go out. All Winnie can see in front of him is a small sliver of light as the young man, Cameron Poole, escapes out the back door. All of a sudden, the ride comes rushing at Winnie and hits him. He bounces off the front of the ride and is slammed into the wall, hitting his head and crumpling to the ground, where he was knocked unconscious. Members of the jury, Officer Winston Thomas died as a result of those injuries. But let's take a step back to August of 2012. The defendant was working at Rock World with her friend Cameron Poole. The two were seen meeting several times. They were unhappy with the working conditions at Rock World and worked out a plan to get what they believed they were owed. You hear from Tyler Hartman that it was the defendant and Cameron Poole who came up with a way to get what they thought they were owed. You'll hear from Rory Shelton, the mascot at Rock World, that it was the defendant's job to always have a plan for everything. Now, a few days before the robbery, things started to heat up at Rock World. People started to notice that something wasn't right. The mascot will tell you that he saw faded wristbands on patrons of the park. These wristbands weren't like the others. They didn't have a sequential numbering on them. And the defendant was seen in the employee locker room with Cameron Poole by Tyler Hartman. Now, she pulls a knife out of her pocket and tells Cameron, "Don't worry, I have a little insurance policy for you." She takes that knife and she places it in his locker, telling him that he knows where it is if he needs it. On August 30th, 2012, even that knife pass wasn't enough for the defendant. On August 30th, Rory Shelton sees them behind the ticket booth. The defendant takes the knife in her hands and she puts it in Cameron's, saying, "Be careful and quick, your window is small." On August 30th, Cameron approaches the ticket booth. He holds a knife to the ticket taker's face and she shoves money into a bag. Cameron takes off running. Now, common sense would tell you that a reasonable person would leave with the flow of traffic. They would want to blend in. But Cameron took off running through the park, to the back bit, to the Tunnel of Terror. Now, despite the fact that this was not the defendant's assigned ride on the day in question, she had the controls in her hands. She put the ride into maintenance mode, which made all the lights turn off, but the ride to continue moving. This enabled Cameron to get out the back and hit Winston Thomas, eventually killing him. Now, members of the jury, you will not hear today that the defendant passed out fake wristbands. You will not hear that she held a knife to the ticket taker's face, and you will not hear that it was she who escaped out the back of the Tunnel of Terror. What you will hear today is that she aided Cameron Poole with the intent to commit these crimes. In Midlands, a person who helps another commit a crime is accountable for the same exact crime by something known as complicity. Now today, we, the state, have brought 3 charges against Ms. Bowman. First, a charge of theft by deception. Second, a charge of robbery in the first degree for the actions against Haley Floyd. And third, a charge of felony murder. Whit Bowman held the knife in her hands. She held the controls of the Tunnel of Terror in her hands, and ultimately, she held Winston Thomas's life in her hands. At the end of today's trial, my co-counsel, Kareem Tawfiq, will come before you and will ask that you find Ms. Bowman guilty on all charges. Thank you.